Intelligence services in the UK now are reevaluating their position on the origin of COVID-19. As I've reported from day one, the coronavirus likely leaked from a lab in Wuhan, China. Now, a new report cites British spies saying that the leak is feasible. Joining me right now is former Undersecretary of State for Economic Growth, Energy and the Environment, Keith Krach. Keith, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. I don't understand why the mainstream media is talking about this COVID origin story as if it's new. Nothing has changed. It was probable in March of 2020, just as it's probable today, that it came from a leak of a lab that was studying the coronavirus. Your reaction to now new calls for more information about this COVID-19 origin?
Well, I can tell you, Maria, that every shred of evidence I've seen about the nature of the virus and how it originated points to level 4 Wuhan lab. And I have not seen a shred of evidence that supports animal to human transmission. And usually where that's occurred, they discover that within 4 to 6 months. It's now been 18 months. I'm no virologist. I'm a businessman, a public servant. But, you know, if I was to assess the probability of a lab leak, I'd put it at 99%. And I think all roads lead to the Wuhan lab. And I say Emperor Xi has no clothes. I think the onus is on Xi to prove it didn't come from the lab. It's been 18 months. And he talks about the last century of shame. Yeah. If he has a shred of evidence, he should show it now. Otherwise, this will be his true century of shame. And history is going to judge him. This cover-up of a century.
Yeah, so why does Joe Biden refuse to raise this subject with Xi Jinping? He's had 2 or 3 phone calls with the communist dictator, and he claims that the subject never came up. I mean, you know, we continue to hear stories about Hunter Biden. The New York Post is breaking stories every day. There's a piece in the paper this morning talking about Mark Meadows saying that there is a lot more to come out from Hunter Biden's laptop. We have now evidence that Joe Biden did, in fact, do meetings with Hunter Biden's enablers from Burisma in Ukraine. And there were deals done with Chinese companies. Is Joe Biden protecting his son's business deals by not raising the issue of the origins of the coronavirus?
You know, I can't speak for the president, Maria, but I can tell you I'm not afraid to speak out. My family's already been sanctioned. You know, this small-town Ohio boy is proud to be number 3 on dictator Xi's sanction list. And I got this because I served my country. I got results, not because of what I said, but because I succeeded in building a clean network that defeated the Chinese Communist Party's master plan for 5G communications. And, you know, the other thing I'll say, too, is that I love the Chinese people. I'm proud to fight for the 1.2 billion Chinese that are not members of the elite Chinese Communist Party. And that especially goes for citizens in Xinjiang, Tibet, Hong Kong, whose freedoms have been eviscerated. They experience the brutality of dictator Xi. And, of course, the people in Taiwan were forced to live in fear every day just to preserve those freedoms.
So what is this administration doing? Let's talk about the Endless Frontiers Act. This seeks to remake and expand the National Science Foundation by creating a technology administration. Keith, what do you know about this bill? Is it enough to keep the U.S. in the lead when it comes to technology, which, of course, we know that the Chinese Communist Party wants to overtake the U.S. as the #1 superpower, including taking the lead on innovation and tech?
Maria, this is a very important bill. And we started this bill back with our global economic security strategy about 1.5 years ago. We approached Senator Schumer and Senator Young. So this is $100 billion that goes to research for the 10 critical national security sectors. We need this because I can tell you, as a guy who's run multiple public Silicon Valley companies, you're on that 90-day shot clock. These are really important technologies. This is not a bill about, spending. This is about national security. Economic security is national security. And I think that's the key thing for everybody to remember. And it's also important to remember that the Endless Frontier Act does not pick winners and losers. The American worker's the winner, and General Secretary Xi's the loser. The reason why I came into government as Undersecretary of State was because of what I saw in China. I'd been going there since 1981. My last trip when I was running DocuSign, I saw things that were unbelievable. And I came back from that, Maria, and I thought to myself, you know, the guys with the best technology win the war. I went out to Washington. I knew no one. And then I was asked to serve the country. And I can tell you that, you know, the citizens of the world now are waking up to this malign regime and understanding, you know, their 3C's doctrine of coercion, co-option, and concealment. And I think the virus, the pandemic, is a perfect example of it. But from a technology standpoint, you know, I grew up welding in my dad's factory, you know, 5-person machine shop in Ohio. And I saw the weapons of mass production. I was a vice president of General Motors. I saw when you build a plant in China, you're not just giving them the blueprints. They're taking your process engineering. You're teaching them how to do it. I've had my intellectual property stolen when I was running Ariba. So these guys aren't messing around.
I understand, Keith. I'm trying to understand what this administration is doing about it, Keith, because you've got a number of American companies getting ready to set up shop in Beijing and get their innovations stolen from them, just as you just point out. But President Biden is not doing anything to stop the intellectual theft, to stop the human rights abuses, to stop the censorship, all coming out of communist China. And these American companies that are enabling this dominance from China, unfortunately, will also feel the wrath when their children and their children and their children do not have the same opportunities that these CEOs had growing up, because they will be living in the Chinese empire.
By the way, Maria, you're right about that with regard to China. You know, I had gathered a dinner at my home in San Francisco a year ago last January. I brought Secretary Pompeo out for 4 days. I hosted him. And we had 36 of the top CEOs. It was a safe environment. I had them all go around the room and to tell their China horror stories. At the end of it, I mean, I stood up and I said, look, the Chinese Communist Party is not just a real and urgent threat to democracy. It's a real and urgent threat to your companies, because they don't want to just compete. They want to put you out of business. And just like we say out here in Silicon Valley, responsibility, social responsibility, it's also national security.
Yeah, unfortunately, those conversations that happened in your home will likely stay in your home, because these CEOs are too afraid of the Communist Party to actually speak out and speak the truth. I've had conversations on background as well. They will not say that publicly because they're afraid of what might happen to them, just like what just happened to Australia. Keith, it's good to see you. Thank you so much. We will certainly keep a spotlight on this issue.